Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Trijaya Sastia Puri from Group 2. I and my friends are Adinda Mutiara Maharani, Rahmini and Desta Fitri Yanti will explain about constituents and categories of methods. Okay, for the first, I will explain about approach. What is approach? Approach as a set of correlative assumptions dealing with the nature of language and the nature of language teaching and learning. According to expert Edward Anthony, 1965. From Edward Anthony's models, approach is the level at which assumptions and beliefs about language and language learning are specified. Method is the level at which theory is put into practice and at which choices are made about the particular skills to be taught, the content to be taught, and the order in which the content will be presented. Technique is the level at which classroom procedures are described.
Okay, after we know what is approach, we also have to know type of approach in language teaching. There are 6 types. For the first, structural approach. It creates suitable environment in the class for learning a foreign language. It gives command over the language as there are more opportunities to the pupils to express their ideas, feelings, and experiences in the English language. But some critics feel that the teacher cannot successfully teach prose, poetry, and composition, and the present curricula is not suitable to follow this method. Okay, next, the second type is the communicative approach. The communicative approach argues that merely knowing how to produce a grammatically correct sentence is not enough. A communicatively competent person must also know how to produce an appropriate, natural, and socially acceptable utterance in all contexts of communication. And then the third type is situational approach. The situational approach makes the language teaching natural, meaningful, and realistic by teaching the structural pattern and vocabulary situationally. But it has its own limitation, like the teacher has to do a lot of planning to think of appropriate situation through which to teach the language material meaningfully, lively, and effectively. And then for the fourth type, the oral approach, referred to an approach to language teaching developed by British applied linguists from the 1930 to the 1960, Hubbard, Jones, Thompson, and Wheeler comment in 1983 still hold true today. This method is widely used at the time of writing and a very large number of textbooks are based on it. Okay, next for the 5 types is total physical response approach. Total physical response or TPR is a language teaching method built around the coordination of speech and action. It attempts to teach language through physical or motor activity. Next, for the last or 6 types is natural approach. The natural approach is one of the language teaching methods based on observation and interpretation of how learners acquire both first and second language in non-normal settings. Richards and Rodgers, 2001. Cashan and Terrell saw the approach as a traditional approach to language teaching because it is based on the use of language in communicative situations without resource to the native language. Okay, next about theory of language. At least three different theoretical views of language and the nature of language proficiency explicitly and or implicitly inform current approaches and methods in language teaching. For the first structural view, the view that language is a system of structurally related elements for the coding of meaning. The target of language learning is seen to be the mastery of elements to this system, which are generally defined in terms of phonological units, for example, phonemes, and then grammatical units, for example, clauses, phrases, and sentence, and then grammatical operation, for example, ending, shifting, joining, and transforming elements. And for the last, lexical items, for example, function, words, and structure words. For the second, functional view, the view that language is a physical for the expression of functional meaning. This theory emphasizes the semantic and communicative dimension rather than merely the grammatical characteristic of language, and leads to a specification and organization of language teaching content categories of meaning and function rather than by elements of structure and grammar. And for the third, interactional view, it sees language as a physical, the realization of interpersonal relation and for the performance of social transaction between individuals. Language teaching content, according to this view, may be specified and organized by patterns of exchange and interaction, or may be left unspecific, to be shaped by the inclination of learners as interactors. Okay, then next about theory of language learning. A learning theory should respond to these two questions. For the first question, what are the psycholinguistic and cognitive processes involved in language teaching? And for the second question, what are the conditions that need to be met in order for these learning processes to be active? Okay, Stephen Krashen's monitor theory, which is based on the natural approach, answered both questions by distinguishing between the acquisition and learning processes, and by describing the type of input the learners receive, which should be at their level, interest, of sufficient quantity and in low anxiety context, and these are the conditions. Transcendental or natural approach, and James Asser or total physical response are examples of methods based on this learning theory. Okay, I think enough for my explanation.